So how do we move from, how do we gain tolerance in a greater good? How do we get to a greater good? So there's a couple of ways, and I'm going to give you three of them. The first way is to predetermine that no matter what, you're going to face everything as if it's a catalyst and not a crucifixion. No matter what. And that is something that you start off with. That's a mindset. If you do that, you'll be better prepared when the road gets rough, which it will, to go, this is not against me, this is for me, and I'm going to rise with the prize from this situation. The next thing is, no matter, you like that? Yes. That was our first real aha moment here. And the next thing is to know where you're going. To really get clear on where you're going. And if you're going there, not to stand still, but to continue to move forward and not backward. And that seems like an easy thing, but really that's another predetermined idea. I'm moving forward. I'm not going backwards. I don't remember who it is, but a guy who says, burn your boats, like really give yourself no escape route. You're moving forward, and that's it. And then the next one is to give up what you know as good, to really shed what you know as good, so that you can make room for God's great. So that. I think that one is one of the major setbacks for a lot of us, is that we get comfortable. We go, this is really good, this is really good. And then we start to hold on to good, like, oh no, we're going to lose this good. But we literally have to take this good and go and murder it, so that we can make space for greater good. So get into the practice of shedding and letting go and being okay with pruning. Because your greater good lives on the other side of that thing that challenges you. So you got to be willing to kind of face our challenges and face our illusions of sacrifice. I know that it lives on the other side of what challenges you, because if it wasn't on the other side of what challenges you, you would have it already. That's how we know that it's just beyond the bend. And beyond the bend means we got to live in the great mystery of God. You're going to a place you've never been before. So of course it's going to feel a little bit scary. But you have to have complete faith that God will meet you as you move forward, and that God expands and evolves with you. So a block to that is awareness. If we don't have an awareness of our greater good, we'll continue to regurgitate the same old stuff over and over, and we'll say, oh, this is good enough. This is good enough. We'll sing the song of good enough. That's not for you. You didn't get up for that today. You came here because something out there wasn't good enough. And you decided to find this hokey little hippie church where you're like, I think I want something different. I want to order off the menu. You came to the unknown, the great mystery, right? There's this story of Jane Addams down in Chicago. She started this magnificent movement for people who were less fortunate than her called Hull House. If you haven't been there yet, you got to get there. It's an amazing tribute to this woman who was willing to hold open a story, a possibility of greater good for those less fortunate than her. And she told us a story about this Italian little girl. And when she first came, she was serving mostly Italian immigrants. And this little girl came into Hull House, and she saw these roses, and she started weeping. And, the women there were like, well, what are you crying about? She's like, I'm so grateful that you brought these flowers from Italy for me. And they were like, they're not from Italy. And she's like, no, these are from Italy. These beautiful flowers, they're so beautiful. They have to be from Italy. These are the flowers from my home. And they said, no, they're from the florist down the block. It's like right down the block. We got them right down the block. And she was like, no. And they said, yeah, right down the block. She wasn't aware that something so beautiful could come from America because she was living in squalor, in slum, where she never left that place. So all that she knew of America was, dust and dirt and cement. And so, of course, she equated this thing that was beautiful with something from her past and not from her future. She wasn't aware. And so we have to be aware, no matter what, that we have to be curious about what is beyond the bend, and not sit in the stagnation of our own slumlords. Only your own thoughts can harm you. So we got to look for a greater good all the time. And know that as we look for that greater good, what we want is for it to come gracefully and easily, and it doesn't come gracefully and easily. When we move into a greater good, it's where we haven't been before, so we're going to be awkward with it. But that's okay. Spring comes so awkwardly. The little seed has to literally shatter itself in a very awkward dance for it to bloom into that seedling. The little chickling, the little egg, has to shatter itself, has to shatter the consciousness and the idea of itself to move into this place of freedom where it literally learns how to fly. And you and I are the same as well. We get up against our agitations, and there's a part of us that says, let me die here. But then there's a small whisper that says, let me exceed this. Let me move beyond this. Let me know that there is a greater good beyond this, because I'm here to evolve, not to move backwards. So, I hate to put my glasses on, but there you go. They're not even my glasses. They're my mother-in-law's glasses. I inherited them. I know. Okay, so fear and faith say the same thing. They say, fear says, this will kill me. Fear says, this will kill me. And faith says, this will kill me. But that which dies is no longer important to me. If it doesn't kill you, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. We hate that saying. We hate that so much. We just said it this morning. But my God is so good. My God is so great that which is dying isn't for me anymore. It's okay to let it go. We don't have to stay stuck in the bud. We get to live on the uncomfort zone of their cusp, of their greater yet to be, of the mystery. That's why your song was so poignant today. That we don't know what it is. It's this mystery, and it feels good to be that bold and that brave. It feels uncertain, but it feels alive and vital. So when you're uncomfortable, you could say, "This isn't fair. This is wrong. This is no good." You could say that when you're uncomfortable. Or you could say, oh, I'm being pruned for a greater good. Of course it feels a little uncomfortable. I am literally being pruned right here for a greater good. I am on the cusp of my greatest yet to be. That's awesome. That's an audacious place to live. So don't fear it. I got to die in order to fly, says the caterpillar. I got to die in order to fly, Who wants to claim that but God? Don't you see the benefits? I got to be willing to be pruned and shed and grow into that which I do not know, the mystery. Do you think it's easy? No, it's scary as... I'm not going to curse anymore in church, so it's your turn to curse. It's scary as... Jesus! One more time. It's scary as... Thank you. Amen. So you've never cursed in church before. Isn't that fun? Yeah. You just lived on the cusp of, oh my God, I can't go there. I'll die. I'll go to hell. And you're like, you know what? I did kill me. I'm still here, laughing with my pagan friends. I didn't want to have all the fun. So it is scary, but we get to live past it and have a little fun doing it. Another block to your greater good is that you're going to want to quit before you get there. So you got to just take a breath, even in the midst of this thing called life, which sometimes feels like a marathon. You go, oh my gosh, it's never going to end. Well, let's hope it's not going to end too soon, because what happens when it ends? So you're in the midst of the marathon, and you want to, continue to move forward. Don't quit. When things go wrong, as they sometimes will, and that road you're trudging seems all uphill, and your debt is high and your doubts are low, or the other way around. Anyway, when you want to smile and you have to sigh, rest if you must, but don't quit. Don't quit, don't quit, don't quit. Keep moving forward and decide that your destination. So there's a story of this girl in the Bible, and I just love it, because you don't hear too many stories of powerful women, but this was a really interesting story, and it's about this woman called Hadash. And she's a little orphan girl. She's a little Jewish girl. and she lives in this Persian territory. And she gets adopted by Mordecai, her cousin or her uncle. In different stories, they say it's her cousin. In some stories, they say it's her uncle. And her cousin uncle. So she gets adopted by Mordecai. Mordecai is like this really great guy. When you read the stories about him, you just feel like, oh my gosh, I wish I knew somebody like that. And Mordecai is just this very brave and righteous man. And he's Jewish, and he's living in this area that they're sort of being persecuted. And there's this guy who's mostly persecuting Mordecai, and his name is Hamed. And Hamed walks through the town. He has a lot of ego and bravado, and he says, bow down before me. Everyone bow down before me. And Mordecai says no. And he stands there with his head up high. And Hamed takes note of him. He's like, okay, this is some guy that I have to deal with, right? And so during the same time, the king of this province, it's a very interesting story of this king. And he is, well, in the Bible it says he's just after 7 days of merriment. He's been drinking for 7 days. He's on a binge, right? And he's having a good old time, just drinking away with his cohorts and the princes and all that. And he decides that, he should bring his wife out because his wife is so beautiful, Queen Vashti. And he says, come on out, and sends the servants to go get her. Come show everybody how beautiful you are and what a beautiful wife I have. And so the servants go off to tell the queen, go get your crown on, get yourself ready, because you're going to go be paraded out at the party that the king's having. And she's like, no, I'm not doing that. And the servants are like, what? And she's like, I'm not hanging out with him. No, he's drunk. I'm not going. Basically. Sounds like a modern version, right? He's drunk. I'm not going. Forget it. So the king goes, oh my gosh. And all the people around him go, oh my gosh, I can't believe she's not going to do what you said. What do we do? And he's drunk, so he says, get rid of her. Like, send her out into exile. And he sends her out. The next morning he wakes up and he's like, bring me the queen. And they're like, you sent her out. And like, you wrote it down and everything. And all the people from all over the kingdom know that you sent her out. And he's like, oh. So right there, we get a really good lesson from the king, right? Like, don't make any rash decisions. Take your time with major decision making. So he says, what am I going to do now? So he goes to his council and they say, what we'll do is we'll gather up all the beautiful young virgins from the town. We'll create a harem for you. And from that harem, you can pick your new queen. Sounds good, right? So they gather up all of the young women, and Hadash gets gathered up with them. And Mordecai is beside himself because he's so... So he's so upset that she's going to be put into this harem, and he had such great expectations for her. Like, he really raised her, and he kept holding her off from marriage because he wanted something really great for her, Mordecai did. And so when he sees her being grabbed off and taken off to his harem, he's devastated. And it made me think of my husband, Will, when he would tuck our kids in to sleep at night. And I think I've told you this before, but he would say to them, you have greatness within you. And I have a feeling that Mordecai said this to Hadash, you have greatness within you. And he kept holding her back from marriage. You have greatness, and I'm going to reserve you for somebody who's really great. And it was Mordecai's job to pick a suitor for her. So it was devastating when she got pulled off into this harem. So she goes into the harem, and before she leaves, he says to her, you're going to be in grave danger being a Jew, so you have to tell them that you're not Jewish and you need to change your name to Esther. So this is incredible that she has to do this, and she's nervous about it, but she goes ahead and she gets into this harem, and she goes and she meets the king. And in all of the stories, whether they say Mordecai is the uncle or the cousin, or whether they say this or that, what they all say is that Esther was gorgeous. She was beautiful inside and out. And so she goes off, and the king sees her, and she stands out. And so he picks her, and he makes her the queen. So now you got this young Jewish girl who was, gonna be, left alone, but some guy takes care of her and raises her, and now she's the queen. Incredible story. So at the same time, back at the riot between Hamed and Mordecai, Hamed is livid, that the Jews are in the town and doing what they do, which is being Jewish, basically. And they're praying to their gods and they're doing their traditions. So he goes to the king and he says, there is a group of people among us who are doing things differently. And I would suggest that you not really have any tolerance for them. And so the king, who sort of, again, sounds like a bumbling idiot, is like, okay, do whatever you want to do. I'll grant you permission to do whatever you want to do. It doesn't sound like great leadership, but this is what happens in the story. And so Hamed says, okay, great. I'm going to declare a genocide of the people, of the Jewish people. He declares a genocide. And Mordecai is like devastated again by this news. And all of the Jews are so worried that they're going to be killed at this particular date. And so Mordecai dons these grieving robes, and Esther sees him and says to her servants, why is my uncle walking around town like that? And they tell her the story. And she goes, well, go bring him some nice clothes. I can't stand seeing him like that. So they bring him the clothes, and Mordecai says, I will not wear these clothes while my people are being, tormented. And then he gets the word back to Esther, and he says, you got to stand up. You got to go to the king. You got to tell him that you're Jewish, and you got to speak for your people. And she's like, are you kidding me? You told me not to be Jewish. Now you told me to be Jewish, and now I'm going to be dead, The king's going to kill me. He's going to send me in exile or worse. Because you can't go to the king unbidden, and she hasn't been bidden by the king in 30 days. 30 days she's been unbidden. And so she thinks, well, maybe he doesn't even like me anymore, and so I'm not going to go knock on his bedroom door because it could be death. I could be murdered. That was what happened to people back then. And so Mordecai says to her, don't think for a second that this is some sort of mistake. You're brought to this moment, and you're brought through this moment by God's plan. You got to trust God's plan. So she's standing on the cusp of this really fearful place, She has this great love for her uncle who did all of this great things for her, and she has this immense fear of the possibility of what lives beyond the knocking on that bedroom door, right? And so instead of moving forward, she tells the people, the Jewish people, we're going to fast. We're going to stop. We're just going to fast. They're going to do a 3-day fast. Now, for us, it's a symbolic story. What does a fast mean? A fast, for me, means that we're going to stop feeding that story. We're going to stop regurgitating the same old thing over and over and over again. We're going to step back from the current events, and we're going to get a little bit deeper. We're going to get still. We're going to clear out. We're going to clear some space so that we can hear the voice of God. So the people go through a fast, and she goes through the fast as well, and she listens for that inner voice, that inner wisdom. On the 3rd day, she gets all dressed up, and she goes, and she says, I might perish, but if I perish, I perish. That's it. This is mine to do. If this kills me, it kills me. And she goes and she approaches her husband, and she tells him, I'm Jewish, and Hamed's going to kill my people. And my people are such good people. You would really love them as much as I do. And she holds her breath and she waits. And the king makes a declaration that Hamed will be killed and that Esther will be given his estate. So not only does she save her people, but she's blessed by it. Because she gets to the point of the complete mystery of the unknown. She lays herself out there as sacrifice. And she says, I don't know what anything is for, but I'm still going to live in the truth. I'm not going to bow down. I'm going to stand like my uncle cousin did. And I'm going to live in my truth no matter what. I will not be watered down. I will not be sugar-coated. I'm going to come to this moment. I'm going to speak my truth. And no matter what happens, I'll be able to live or die with that. But my God is good. And it will be for a greater good. When you slay a dragon, it's not just for your own good. It's for a greater good. It benefits everyone. So when you get to those places of feeling uncomfortable, the idea is to think about that resource of moving forward no matter what. But the thing that she does, which I think is very important for us to recognize, is to stop before we make a decision. The king didn't stop to make decisions. He just kind of rolled through with these decisions, and, they weren't always healthy. But she gives us the example of sincerely slowing down and stepping away from all of the drama so that she can take counsel with herself. The truth is that God is never mentioned in the story of Esther. You know, so we're assuming that she's talking to a higher power, but at the very least, she's taking counsel with herself, her true compass. So I think that's a really great thing to remember. When she spoke up, she saved her people from a genocide. The other day we were watching Schindler's List, Oskar Schindler. And the thing to remember with the story about Esther is that one person, one person can make such a great difference in the world. And, you know, Oskar Schindler started this adventure to try and make money off of a war situation. That's how he started out. You know, so don't be so worried about what's calling you. Just go and try and be as clean as possible. And then God continued to put in his place like the reality of the situation until he had to rise to a greater knowing of himself. And when he rose to a greater knowing of himself, he sent ripples out into the world about what was tolerable and what was no longer tolerable. And though he wanted to be a very rich man, he became rich in ways, I mean, because you know what? Even though, even at that time, the amazing things that were caused by his cleverness, you know, a few years ago when Steven Spielberg made that movie, that story rippled through our consciousness and brought us all together in another vital way of saying, wow, one person is so important and can make all the difference in the world. And that one person is you. So we can gain tolerance for greater good by doing greater good. You know, Gandhi says, be the change you want to see in the world. It's not about trying to bring things into your life, but literally embody it in such a bold way that only good comes to you. That's the mad secret. If you want greater good, be willing to let go of what's good and step into what's great. God has created you as good, and you can decide to be great. There's no limit to your potential. You know, that's a really interesting thing to contemplate. There is no limit to your potential. As good as it is now, there is a greater good that is waiting right around the corner. There are those flowers from Italy that live right within your grasp. And you have to be willing to say, I'm determined to find them here. So that's the truth and the whole truth. Thanks for watching. If you want more tips and tools on how to be a spiritual vixen, go on over to my website, MaureenMuldoon.com, and you can sign up for my love notes. Until then, I'm Maureen Muldoon, the spiritual vixen, reminding you to love more, fear less, and don't forget to laugh.